Well, greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to today's second half and part 11 of Dogman, Bigfoot, Werewolf, and Wildmen, historic experiences in the media. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below, my merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's second half. Shall we? Antics of a Wild Man, Oldham County, Kentucky, August 13th, 1884. The people in this county are much excited over the antics of a wild man who is roaming through the woods and frightening women in farmhouses. Source: The Evening Observer, Dunkirk, New York, USA, August 13th, 1884. The Wild Man of the Ochasee Swamp, Chattahoochee, Florida, August 18th, 1884. News has been received to the effect that the wild man captured in the Ochasee Swamp near Chattahoochee and carried to Tallahassee did not belong to a Florida asylum, and that all inquiry proved unavailing to identify him. He had been swimming in the Ochasee Lake from island to island, and when taken was entirely destitute of clothing, emaciated, and covered with a phenomenal growth of hair. He could give no account of himself, and the theory is that he escaped from an asylum of some other state and spent his time in the woods living on berries, etc. Source: The New York Times, August 19th, 1884. A wild man in a cemetery, visitors to Cypress Hills frightened by a strange figure. Brooklyn, New York, August 25th, 1884. Visitors at Cypress Hills Cemetery and residents in Glendale, East Williamsburg, and Fresh Pond, a little town just outside the limits of Brooklyn, have been greatly excited recently by occasional glimpse of a man who is said to frequent the woods in the neighborhood and who roams about in an exceedingly scant costume composed solely of oak leaves. Efforts have been made to capture the strange individual, but so far they have proven unavailing. The man was last seen on Tuesday evening when Mrs. Robert Mackenzie of number 208, 21st Street, South Brooklyn, was attracted by a succession of screams and beheld a feeble old woman endeavoring to escape from a strange man. When the aged lady reached Miss Mackenzie's side, she said that while sitting at her lot in the cemetery, the nude figure approached her by a leaping movement and made the most frightful grimaces, and wildly the woman gave her name as Mrs. Benfield of number 116 Java Street, Greenpoint. Miss Mackenzie, when she saw the man, brandished a pruning knife over her head and threatened to kill him if he approached any nearer. With a maniacal smile, the wild man, as he is called, ran away, shouting some unintelligible gibberish. Superintendent John T. Runnels of the cemetery says that frequent complaints have been made about disorderly person being seen in the back part of the cemetery. He discredited the wild man story, but stated that very strange stories were always to be heard concerning weird inhabitants of the graveyards. Source, the Trenton Times, New Jersey, USA, August 25th, 1884. A wild man in Peekskill, New York, December 3rd, 1884. Westchester County has been recently terrorized by the appearance and actions of a strange being whom the residents of the little town, for want of a better name, dubbed a wild man. He has been seen by everyone, frightened everyone, everyone tried to catch him, and everyone failed. After a score of tramps who looked more or less wild had been arrested, he disappeared as suddenly as he appeared, and the good people sleep peacefully without being compelled to barricade their doors to prevent him gazing in at them as they prepared themselves for bed. This habit as adopted by the wild man, who, when he saw others disrobe, always did the same thing himself. Source, the Newark Daily Advocate, Ohio, December 3rd, 1885. Rockaway wild man, the residents of the beach, alarmed by a stranger. Clad in a salt sack, he dances didos, terrifying women and children. A searching party return without him, drinks all around. Peekskill, New York, December 3rd, 1885. Recently, along the sought shore of the Long Island, there has been reports of a wild man with long hair, two sharp front teeth that hang down over his upper lip, a long shaggy beard, and muscles that even terrorize the hardy members of the life-saving crews. His dress, like that of all other wild men, consists only of a salt sack girded across his loins, and his body is of dark saffron color. This is the wild man of Rockaway Beach. He first put in an appearance 2 weeks since, but then he was only seen by men who were returning home late at night, and the men who told what they had seen were advised to give up drinking. On Friday, Captain Reinhardt of Life-Saving Station Number 16, while patrolling the beach, saw the wild man. He ran out of a clump of cedar and executed a sort of war dance on the sand, much to the consternation of the captain, who ran back to the house as fast as he could, and could only be coaxed to do a patrol duty again by Zophyr Peekskill. During this he went with him. These two worthies patrolled the beach, but did not see him again. On the same night, while Mrs. Falling sat in her little cottage mending bathing suits for the next summer, she heard a tap at the window, and when she turned to see who it was, she saw a most hideous face, which she likened to a big false face. She, with true womanly instinct, screamed, and the face, like that of all wild men, disappeared. He was also seen by F. Foster of Brooklyn, who was gunning at the beach. Mr. Foster was lying in wait for a duck and saw him come out of the cedars, do a dance on the beach, and, turning a handspring, land in the water. After plunging in the breakers a few moments, she came out and sat on the beach in the sun to dry and ran back into the cedars. On Saturday evening, several reputable citizens saw him, and a searching party was organized. They met at Al Mezzel's Sunday morning. The searchers were those who lived on the beach during the winter. Al Runland was elected captain, Thomas H. Bond lieutenant, and George Jennett ropeman. At 10 o'clock, Captain Rulland got his 48 men in line and spread them from the ocean to the bay, and each man with calling distance of another. And they marched over the entire beach, but of course found no wild man. Once they thought they had him, immense footprints were found in the sand, and the toes, pointed inward, gave the prints a particular appearance. They followed them up to John Renson's barroom, but did not arrest John, as he is said to be extremely tame. But the prince occasionally a set of them up for all hands. Sunday evening, the wild man was seen again, and another party will go out to see if they can locate him. Uncle Jim Remsen is authority for the statement that the wild man is on of the museum wax figures out for a walk. That came from the Newark Daily Advocate, Ohio, USA, December 3rd, 1885. Mountain wild man sighted by hunters, Lebanon, Oregon, December 31st, 1885. Much excitement has been created in the neighborhood of Lebanon, Oregon, recently over the discovery of a wild man in the mountains above that place, who is supposed to have been the long-lost John McIntyre. About 4 years ago, McIntyre of Lebanon, while out hunting in the mountains east of Albany with another man, mysteriously disappeared, and no definite trace of him has ever yet been found. A few days ago, a Mr. Fitzgerald and others, while hunting in the vicinity of the butte known as Bald Peter, situated in the Cascades, several miles above any settlement, saw a man resembling the long-lost man, entirely destitute of clothing, who had grown as hairy as an animal, and was complete wild man. He was eating the raw flesh of a deer when first seen, and they approached within a few yards before he saw them and fled. Isaac Banty saw this man in the same locality about 2 years ago. It is believed by many that the unfortunate man who was lost became deranged, and has managed to find means of substance while wandering about in the mountains, probably finding shelter in some cave. A party of men is being organized to go and search for the man. The source is from the Carson City, Nevada, USA, December 31st, 1885. Gunshot fails to stop hairy man, or did it miss? Flea Creek, foot of Webb Range, Brindlebullus, probable location Australia, circa 1885. William and Joseph Webb inform that while they were out in the ranges preparing to camp for the night, they had a strange encounter. Down the side of a range to the eastward, and with only a narrow gully separating them, an object attracted their attention. They first heard a deep guttural bellowing, and then a crashing of the scrub. The next moment, a thing appeared walking erect. Though they saw only its head and shoulders, it was hirsute. So much of the creature was visible, and its head was set so deep between its shoulders that it was scarcely perceptible. It was approaching towards their camp. Now it was in full view, and was of a stature of a man, moving with long strides in a heavy tramp. It was challenged. "Who are you? Speak, or I will fire." Not an intelligible word came in response, only a guttering bellow. Aim was taken. The crack of the rifle rang out along the gully, but the thing, if hit, was not disabled, for at the sound of the shot it turned and fled. The two gentlemen, filled with amazement and curiosity, but not alarm, went to where they had seen and shot at this formidable-looking creature, and sought for its tracks in verification of what had happened. There were footprints long, like a man's, but with longer, spreading toes. There were its strides, also much longer than those of a man, and there were broken twigs and disordered scrub through which it had come and gone. They saw no blood or other evidence of their shot have taken effect. The source would be from the Out of the Shadows book, coming from Australia, page 121, from John Gale, 1903. Wildman seen in local mountains, Happy Camp, California, January 2nd, 1886. The following letter was received regarding a wild man seen in this area. I do not remember to have seen any reference to the wild man which haunts this part of the county, so I shall allude to him briefly. Not a great while since, Mr. Jack Dover, one of the most trustworthy citizens, while hunting, saw an object standing 150 yards from him picking berries or tender shoots from the brush. The thing was of gigantic size, about 7 feet high, with a bulldog head, short ears, and long hair. It was also furnished with a beard and was free from hair on such parts of its body as is common among men, palms, sole of feet, etc. Its voice was shrill or soprano and very human, like that of a woman in great fear. Mr. Dover could not see its footprints, as it walked on hard soil. He aimed his rifle at this animal, or whatever it was, several times, but because it was so human, he would not shoot it. The range of curiosity is between the Marble Mountain and the vicinity of Happy Camp. A number of people have seen it, and all agree in their description, except some make it taller than others. It is apparently an herbivore and makes winter quarters in some of the caves of Marble Mountain. Source: the Del Norte Record, California, January 2nd, 1886. Monkey-like child, shot in New York forest. Nyack, New York, August 16th, 1886. A group of hunters emerged from the Hook Mountain area the other day with the most unusual story. While enjoying their day of sport, they noticed an animal of some sort up high in the tree some distance away. Unable to determine what kind of animal it was, one of the hunters said he would find out its species. He took aim and shot the creature, which let out an agonizing cry and fell to the ground. The hunters quickly went to inspect the animal and were astounded to find that it was a bald-faced monkey. All were at a loss to explain how such a creature could be found on Hook Mountain. While critically wounded, the creature was still alive, according to one hunter. It acted exactly like a human being, putting its hands out, pleading the way a child would do. One of the men lifted the creature as one would lift a child, and it put its arms around the man's neck and sobbed. Greatly disturbed by this, the man hesitated towards his home with the creature clinging to him in hopes of rendering medical aid. Unfortunately, the wound it received was fatal, and during the journey its pitiful cries sank to a whisper and it died. All of the hunters were greatly touched by the incident. One of them offered that he could not have felt worse had an actual child been shot. Source: New York Times, New York, USA, August 17th, 1886. A wild family caught in Kansas, Lynn, Washington County, Kansas, September 3rd, 1886. On Sunday evening last, while two young men of Lynn were walking through the woods about 10 miles west of that place and a mile and a half south, at a camp meeting ground in Parsons Creek, they heard a strange noise in the dense thicket nearby and started to investigate. They had gone but a short distance when they came in sight of what appeared to be 4 human beings. 2 were grown on, apparently 14 years of age, and a child of 2 or 3 years. All were nude. They were dark-skinned, and the upper part of their bodies was covered with what looked like coarse black fur. As soon as they saw the young men, they ran down to the creek. The men followed, and they were gaining on them when they dropped the child, which a Mr. Walcott caught. Having lost sight of the older ones, they carried the child up to the campground, where it was taken charge by a Reverend Paulette and brought to Lynn, where it could be found by all wishing to see it. As soon as this party could be organized, they started to be in search for those who had escaped. And yesterday, the men and women and girl were caught, all of whom were naked. The men and women were bald on top of their heads, and it was believed they were sculpted a long time ago by Indians, which made them crazy. Scalped a long time ago by Indians, which made them crazy. They will not eat cooked food, but devour raw meat like animals. The girl is 13 years old, and the people are a dirty ash. Color neither white, black, or red. When the little child was brought into the presence of its mother, she paid no attention to it, though the girl seemed pleased, as was the baby itself. The strange family has been supplied with clothing. All three of them are very hairy. The wild man, before being captured, broke Reverend Black's arm. None of them can talk, though they make guttural sounds, which they seem to understand. The source, the Atchison Daily Globe, Kansas, USA, September 3rd, 1886. Well, my friends, the second half of today's upload and part 11 of Dogman, Bigfoot, Werewolf, and Wildman, Historic Experiences in the Media. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. And I hope everyone is safe and well. With that, I will see you tomorrow, my friends.